Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There it is, so you don't miss any of our football content this season. It has been, if I might say, fantastic. Basketball season's here. There's only one place I go for tickets, and that's Game Time. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks. Makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. When I want to go to a basketball game, football game, concert, comedy show, just click on the event you want to attend. Game Time gives me a seat preview, offers me a great deal. I get the best bang for my buck. Game Time also has the lowest prices guaranteed, or they will credit you 110% the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download their app, Game Time app, 90 seconds, create an account, use the code Colin, that's me, C-O-L-I-N, $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply, redeem codes Colin, C-O-L-I-N, $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Time for another edition of Sharper Square with Chad Millman, the co-host of The Favorites, all odds provided by DraftKings. I felt pretty good about my picks. I said in week 6 or 7, I start to just go with quarterbacks. I think defenses get statistically more beat up, more injured. Quarterbacks are even more important. Teams and locker rooms move off players, more finger pointing. The better cultures win, the better coaches win, the better quarterbacks win. So there's a couple of big favorites I like this weekend, and I don't normally do that. Let's go to the underdogs, though. Dolphins +6 at the Bills. I like Miami. Okay, so this has been a series dominated by Buffalo, no question, but they played very good. They're really feeling themselves. They travel cross-country, now it's back. Miami, Tua is the first game back off a concussion. They actually controlled that game, led by 10 in the fourth. Usually, quarterbacks off concussions don't play great in the first week. Second week, third week, fourth week, you see improvement. Division rival game, really like Miami plus the point, Sharper Square.
Look, it's flipped. It opened at 6, moved up to 6.5. The wise guys liked Buffalo at 6.5. And there's been a lot of wise guy money moving this back down to 6. It might even get down to 5.5 before kickoff. So wise guys are on your side here. They like Miami. They like Tua. They want to fade the Bills because they've been playing so well. I will tell you, I'll give you the other side of that argument because I've bet Buffalo at -6. I will be against the wise guys. I might be against you too. I want to give everybody the opportunity to hear both sides. Tua is terrible against teams that are good, that are on the road. Okay. 2-10 straight up, 3-8-1 against the spread away from home versus winning teams in his NFL career with the Dolphins. Also, the Bills offense has been top 3 in the league across the majority of metrics, superficial, advanced metrics, whatever you want to do when it comes to rushing the ball. The Dolphins are a terrible tackling team. So from a matchup perspective and a history perspective, I think the Bills have an advantage. But the wise guys, they like what they saw. They feel like Tua, the second game back after the concussion, he's going to be better. They feel like this Buffalo team, it's a little bit too high. It's inflated because of how well the Bills have been playing. So wise guys are with you, Colin, but I'm not.
Okay, so I like Arizona -1.5 at home. First of all, Matt Eberflus is the worst road coach in the
Terrible.
league. Terrible. Secondly, Arizona's better. Their personnel offensively is the best kept secret in the league. I love Connor the back, McBride the tight end. Harrison now is getting more consistent. He's a dog. Kyler Murray in the second half was outstanding. And I never trust this team's consistency and maturity, but I like the staff. I like their fight. Chicago, if you start looking at Chicago, they unraveled last week. They really did. They were lucky to be in a position to lose by a Hail Mary. Arizona's a good home team. Eberflus awful on the road. Arizona -1.5, Sharper Square.
Yeah, it's sharp-ish. Like if the wise guys are playing anything here, they're playing Arizona, but it's not primary in the games they're betting. A lot of wise guys I talk to, they kind of want to pass on this game. Like in a perfect world, in a vacuum, they'd bet on the Bears. The Bears are more talented offensively. They're a really good defensive team, and they're really good at rushing the passer, and they're really good in coverage. Now, the challenge for the Bears is Montez Sweat didn't practice on Wednesday, has an injured shin. We don't know what his status will be. They're 10-5 with Montez Sweat since he joined the team. Okay, number one, that's really good for pass rush. Number two, Braxton Jones, their left tackle, he probably isn't going to play, did not practice this week. They were terrible when he left the game last week. Caleb was running for his life. And then they got worse when Braxton Jones backup came in, and Braxton Jones backup is not going to be playing this week. So they're scraping the bottom of the barrel there. But here's what's interesting about Kyler. Kyler is great in the chaos. And what the Bears would create and what their strength is creating chaos for quarterbacks because they are so good at rushing the passer and so good in coverage. So Kyler's strengths actually plays to the Bears' strength, which is another reason why the wise guys aren't quite looking to rush to bet this game. And like you, Eberflus, man. And I can't imagine you don't have a theory on this, but as a Bears fan, why draft Caleb Williams and then keep a coach who's a defensive coach who, if he doesn't do well this year, you know you're going to get rid of, then you're going to bring in a new coach, and you've basically wasted a year and created bad habits for Caleb Williams, right? So now all of a sudden, Eberflus is basically throwing his team under the bus, saying, we practice this play, the Hail Mary, every single week. I don't know why the guys didn't do it right. That hasn't sat well. So people don't know what they're going to get with the Bears this week.
Okay, you know I love the magic number 4, 4.5, and 5. I take the favorites. Washington thoroughly outplayed Chicago, and Chicago's a pretty decent team. The Giants now, as we talked about, no Andrew Thomas. Daniel Jones, visibly frustrated during the week. 2-point conversion against the Steelers. They're off him. Everybody in the building knows it. It just feels like a horrible environment. The owner has supported the GM and the coach and not the quarterback. I think Washington's a really good team. I think they're for real. I think now Jaden Daniels is healthier. I didn't feel he was at 100% last weekend. I would take Washington -4. I know it's a division rivalry game.
No, the wise guys are with you. They're betting on Washington, and it's normally they wouldn't, right? A division game, you're getting a home dog at more than a field goal. You want to bet the home dog, and we've got other games in which that is a scenario this week. But right now, like 3.5 for a team that has lost its left tackle. He was the only reason that you ever felt comfortable betting on this team because he was so good at stabilizing that line. And now Tyrone Tracy, who has really been an offensive weapon out of the backfield for them, the running back out of Purdue, he had a concussion, not likely to play. You're right about Daniel Jones. I think it's only a matter of time before they give him the hook because they owe him, $23 million if he gets injured next season. So I think pretty soon this experiment with Danny Dimes is going to end.
Okay, I think the Rams are really a good football team when healthy. In fact, if you go back to last year when Stafford, Kyron Williams, Puka, and Cooper Kupp played, they're 7-3 in their losses at Detroit in overtime, at Baltimore in overtime. Offensive coach and Matt Stafford played on Thursday. Extra time to prepare. They only have to give up one at Seattle. This is a coach and a quarterback mismatch. They are now healthier, and like the Packers offensively, the Rams defensively are crazy young. Young teams grow. They become better and better every few weeks. The Packers offense just getting better every 2 games. This Rams defense is high draft picks, hungry, no stars, fast, young, and collectively very good. I think the Rams put away the Seahawks here, sharp or square.
You and I right now are going into the foxhole on the Los Angeles Rams. The wise guys hate this bet. The Rams opened at 1.5-point underdogs. They are now almost 2.5-point favorites. The wise guys, they love Seattle at 2.5. I'm with you. And Simon Hunter, my co-host, he's with you. Like, we feel like we are alone in the foxhole betting this game, and we don't see what other people are seeing in Seattle. You've said this before. Sean McVay, for all the bells and whistles, all the motion on this team, he likes to run the ball. And Kyron Williams has been a top 5 running back in the NFL the past season and a half. And he has been amazing since this season began, especially against team like Seattle, which are
Yeah.
bottom third in all the rushing stats that matter. The total rushing yards, yards per carry, EPA per rush. Like they are not a very good rush defense. They're still a team that's developing its talent. Puka's back. He's a great run blocker. You saw that last week. He's just so freaking big. Cooper Kupp back. Stafford is great in these situations. He's a quarterback. At the end of the day, like you've said, there are quarterbacks that you just don't want to bet against. And sometimes I make my decisions about who I want to bet on based on how uncomfortable am I going to be if I am betting the other side and this quarterback has the ball in the last 2 minutes. Matthew Stafford's top 5 on that list. So you and I, brother, if it's in the Blazin, you're going to be in a foxhole. I'm going to be in the foxhole. We'll be in it together.
Um, there's a couple of games that are fascinating to me. First of all, I don't know if it's a stay away game. I think I would take the Vikings at home -5 against the Colts because they're making a quarterback change. Also, I think the Rams on the road and the Lions, those offenses and those coaching staffs can make teams look very bad. And I think Minnesota's defense, if you go back 3 weeks, we thought it was pretty good. I think they need to redeem themselves before they get into division play. I think this is a good spot for them. I think they have a quarterback advantage. I think both coaches are really good. But in this spot with a quarterback change, I think Minnesota has to get right. There's real urgency here before they get to the Green Bays, the Detroits, the Chicagos in their schedule. I would take the Vikings -5
Yeah, the
sharp or
wise
square.
guys have been betting the Colts. They bet them at 6. They bet them at 5.5. If it's down to 5, it means they bet them again. The Colts situation is incredibly confusing. Shane Steichen kind of intimated that this was coming from ownership, right? Like you look at Anthony Richardson, the completion percentage is not a very good way to judge a developing quarterback. And there's been a lot of great analysis this week about if you analyze each one of his throws, he's making the choices that are the lower percentage throw, but the higher ROI if they're completed versus 8-yard outs that won't get you the first down or 20-yard outs that will get you the first down. And so there's decisions being made there. And Shane Steichen, I'm a huge fan as a coach. The wise guys are on this game because when it became Flacco, they sort of felt a little bit more comfortable that he can manage the Brian Flores defense and anything this guy throws at him. And don't forget, the Colts have an elite rushing game. And we talked about this last week. It's why I like the Colts against the Texans last week. If you have a really good coach who's a good play caller and you have an elite unit and you're a decent sized underdog, I'm going to make that play. And that game played out exactly as we expected it to play out with the Colts. They dominated on the ground, right? And they had so that Jonathan Taylor had more than 100 yards rushing in his first game back. They ran 6.2 yards per carry. Like they will rely on the running game. They'll find ways to potentially keep this game close. So feels a little bit trappy to bet the Vikings. It's not going to be a game that I'm invested in at all.
Okay, here's a game that I would never bet. You know, I take the big number off the board. People try to talk me into Lions Titans. Should have, won't do it. Ravens at home -9.5. Now, Lamar has taken a couple practices off. The Ravens, by adding another receiver, are telling you, listen, we don't have Kansas City's defense or Buffalo's. We're going to win by scoring. They want to ramp up this offense. Their weakness is the back end. Over the top, you can beat them. And Mahomes and Josh Allen might. Herbert might. Bo Nix isn't. That's not how they're built. He's not a big deep ball thrower. He's more agile, mobile, underneath. Ravens' weakness is not going to be exploited by Denver. This is a tough spot. Ravens off a loss. Again, Baltimore on most Sundays the last 2 years has been the knockout artist in this league, blasting teams at home, not beating them, blasting Niners, Miami, like Detroit. This is a number I'll swallow. Ravens 9.5. I know I am as square as a Lego, right?
Not this week, brother. Not this week. Like last week, I tried to get you on the Lions. I love the
Yes.
Lions. And like that was a no-brainer from the get-go. It didn't matter what the number was going to be. We were betting the Lions. The Ravens, the wise guys are coming in on the Ravens. And it's a little bit tricky because Denver's defense is fierce, right? Great,
Getting
great
great
pass
pass
rush.
rush.
Great against the run. Like their front four is phenomenal. But you can also look at it and say they've played not very good teams. They've had a relatively easy schedule.
Weaker
quarterbacks, right? You can look at the Ravens and say, okay, they should be dominating, but they let every team back into it. And look at what Jameis did last week. Look at what Jaden Daniels. The Ravens were up by 10. The spread was 7.5. The Commanders lost that game by 7 because the Ravens let Jaden Daniels get back into it. We've seen it week after week after week. The Ravens give up 17.3 points per game in the second half this year. That is the worst in the NFL. Only the Titans are at 31. It's like those two. And last week they were tied. And so the Ravens number got worse this week, and the Titans number, after giving 52 points, got better. That's how bad the Ravens back end has been. If you watched that game last week, Ross Tucker, who's a great broadcaster and a really good podcaster, he talked about, like, you look on film and every single week, this Ravens defense, the back end, they look confused and they're communicating and trying to get it right while the play is being called and while the ball is being snapped. So it's a huge gamble, literally, to take the Ravens at this big a number. You got to believe that Bo Nix won't be able to go over the top in the same way. And you know Sean Payton is going to have him sling it. Like he's playing him like he's a fourth-year pro. Yeah. So it's risky, but the wise guys are on it. If you want to be on it, I can't walk you off it.
Okay, so the game that's most interesting to me, every week I pick a game, and I want you to convince me. So my natural feeling is, even off a bye, Dallas just doesn't deliver much to the field. Off a bye against the San Francisco defense without Dre Greenlaw, not really playing particularly well, some top starters out, they couldn't generate much offense. And they were dominated once you went off script in the third quarter and you adjusted by the Niners. So I just don't like Dallas. Every part of my being loves Atlanta minus 2.5, 3. Every part. But Atlanta is off a very, very competitive divisional game, highly emotional game. And I can see them coming back down to earth. I can see Dallas. Remember, Atlanta offers no pressure. Guys like Dak and Geno Smith with time to throw are usually really effective. So my gut feeling is Atlanta's the side. I picked Atlanta to be the number 1 seed in the NFC with 12 to 13 wins. I love them. But something tells me Dallas is the side.
Dallas is where the wise guys are. And this number gets to 3. It gets bet down to 2.5. It gets bet back up to 3, goes down to 2.5. The wise guys definitely like the Cowboys here. It's a little strange, the Falcons, Kirk Cousins has basically run up his numbers thrown against the Buccaneers and the Panthers. That's how he's had such a good year. And he's played, right. Honest to God, he's thrown 8 touchdowns and thrown for 800 yards against the Buccaneers. And so you look at those numbers, you're like, oh my God, he's amazing. He finally made Kyle Pitts look like what everyone has been drooling about from a fantasy point of view for the past 3 or 4 years. But against regular teams, they're generally mediocre. And so the question becomes, especially against teams that can cover and that can rush the passer. So the question you have to ask yourself is Micah Parsons going to play? Because without Micah Parsons, the Cowboys can't rush the passer. That is, pardon the phrase, an Achilles heel for Kirk Cousins. He's not very good against coverage right now. Is Deron Bland going to play? He practiced this week, the Cowboys cornerback. If so, the Cowboys are much, much better in coverage. Dak Prescott is basically a mall Santa at this point. He does not move inside the pocket, right? He just sits. For 4 hours, the guy's just sitting there, giving away gifts to CeeDee Lamb. If he is able to do that against a team like the Falcons that can't get any pressure, then yeah, he's going to slice them up. Cowboys have no running game. They can't stop the run. It is so ugly. It will be so uncomfortable. Everything about these teams says fraud. So you're really just deciding, I'm betting on the underdog as a fraud.
Okay, there's always a game or two I missed. I have a feeling Chargers Browns could be one of them. I would be prone to bet against Cleveland after a win. That would be my gut feeling. Is that one of the games
Well,
I
certainly
missed?
it's a game that a lot of wise guys are talking about, and they have been betting on Cleveland. This number has moved down. I think it
Oh,
was at 2.5, and no, down to two, now down to 1.5. I'm with you, man. I don't get it. And this is what makes betting so interesting, right? Because you have to decide, when are you selling? It's like the market. Are you selling? Are you going to hold on for 1 week too long? Are you going to lose 10 to 20% of your value? Or are you getting out at the peak? Let's break down the Ravens and the Chargers as competition for Jameis. Let's break down Jameis as he played the Ravens last week. He was great, sliced him up. Also, had a fumble at the end of the first half that put the Ravens in position to score the go-ahead touchdown. Instead of being down 6-3, they're up 10-6. The play before he threw that dime to Cedric Tillman to win the game for the Ravens, he threw a gimme interception to Kyle Hamilton that Kyle Hamilton dropped. And there were three of those
yeah,
in that
yeah,
game, right?
yes,
So now you
yes.
go look at the Chargers. The Chargers have an elite run defense. They have a great playmaker in Justin Herbert who doesn't turn the ball over. You know they are going to run the ball. Is Jameis Winston going to get away with the same mistakes? That is my concern in betting on the Browns. The wise guys are betting that Jameis will continue to find a way to be Jameis, and that because this offensive line is getting healthier, because this defense is getting healthier, because the game is in Cleveland, there's an upswing, there's still momentum. I'm not buying it. So if you want to pass on it, I get it. If you want to take the Chargers, I get it. The Chargers number is getting lower. It's a little trappy to take sort of the road dog, the road favorite in this spot.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge play for me, but I will bet the Chargers.
Anything else I
Yeah.
missed?
How did we not talk about the Lions and the Packers?
Well, because I don't know if Jordan Love's
Doesn't
going to
matter.
play.
Don't care. As Jay Cutler says in the urinal in Chicago, when someone tells them they went to Vanderbilt, don't care. I don't care. I'm betting the Packers at plus 3.5. And by the way, if Jordan Love isn't playing and it's Malik Willis and the number goes up to 4.5, I'm still playing the Packers. Matt LaFleur is an elite schemer. He has been amazing this season. Matt LaFleur, 70% against the spread when he is an underdog. And by the way, when he's an underdog of 3 or more points, 18-4. You got Jared Goff, who has a balky ankle. You've got Jared Goff playing outdoors. You've got the Lions
Yeah.
at peak value right now. You've got the Lions going against a Packers offensive line that is a fantastic pass blocking unit. And this will be the first time we really see the impact of not having Aiden Hutchinson to rush the passer. And by the way, Malik Willis, what has he done badly to not give us confidence? Matt LaFleur understands what he is getting into with that quarterback. This is a smash spot for the Packers. I love the Packers here.
Well, that's why you're a professional
Well,
gambler and I'm a
by the
radio
by the way,
schmuck.
by the way, nobody knows nothing until the game is over. But I am definitely
By the way, my toughest loss of the year, I took, I love the number 4. I took Green Bay against Jacksonville, and they kneel before rushing in.
that was rough. I had that was rough.
Rough.
I think I told you to take Jacksonville at 3.5.
I know. But I honestly, Green Bay led. I felt like I was I felt like I was on the right side. But the way I lost, I remember last year I lost a doink on the Saints. They hit the crossbar, maybe twice in that game. I felt like about once a year. I laugh. I don't get angry. I feel like you got to be kidding me. They led by, I think, 10 at one point in the second half. They're going in, running for the touchdown, and the guy does a dive at the 2. And I thought, well,
That's it.
okay. The experts were right.
That's how it works out. By the way, that Jacksonville game was a joke. I was joking on the podcast this week. I hated the Jacksonville bet. I didn't want to make it. I thought it was a bad idea. I hate that team. I'm not impressed with them. Everything that we needed to go right in that game went right. It was a lucky win. But then you got to look at the Colts against the Texans, and either we got
I got lucky there.
either we got really lucky with the Colts because the Texans were going to, at the very least, kick a field goal late in the game if Joe Mixon and CJ Stroud don't botch the snap, don't botch the handoff, and the Colts recover, and then they can go down and do their thing, or the game ends at 3. It wasn't going to go like that, but everything that led up to that made it feel like a great handicap. Everything with Jacksonville felt like a bad handicap, and we just got lucky in the end. But you sort of have to say to yourself, did I get lucky in both games, or were both games a great handicap? So I'm going with they were genius ideas. And I'm hoping the same thing happens with the Packers.
Sharper Square, Chad Millman, co-host of The Favorites, all odds provided by DraftKings.
Yeah,
Thanks, buddy.